Hello, in this video I'm going to cover some information on what to do when you lose an FPV signal. How to either get the FPV signal back, or even if you can't get the FPV signal back, things that you can do to guide your copter back to you safely. Such as when it is a dot in the sky and you can't see the front or the back. So I can tell you how to regain orientation when you can't tell what is front and back visually because it is too small in the sky. So starting, first things first. If you're flying FPV, whether it be a Phantom or any other quadcopter, you always need to have a clear, unobstructed view of the craft. So that means no trees, no obstacles or anything in front of you, because that will dramatically affect your range. So let's say you're flying and suddenly a tree or something blocks a clear line of sight between you and the bird, you can suddenly lose reception. That could be caused by you flying too far away at too low of an altitude. So the farther you fly out at low altitude, lower obstructions in front of you will easily end up blocking that clear line of sight. Second is proper antenna orientation to maximize your range. So clean line of sight, make sure you're flying high enough so that nothing obstructs the view between your antennas and your bird. And proper antenna orientation. This is of course a Phantom remote. And so let's say if you're flying a non-modded extender, the flat side would need to be facing your Phantom, and the radio controlled self antenna should always be pointed up. Omnidirectional antennas, tip needs to be facing the sky with the same polarization as the antennas on the bird. The antennas on the bird are right over here, and it needs to match with that orientation. If you're flying something like a Phantom 3 or an Inspire, same deal. It has two antennas. They need to be pointed straight up at the sky. There are a lot of people that don't know any better, and they're pointing tips of their antenna at their bird, which is absolutely not the thing that you should be doing. So now, moving forward, now let's say you're flying, you have those bits out of the way, and you lose, and you have a decent signal on your FPV feed, but suddenly it drops. But everything else is good. You know that you're flying high enough, or if you're not sure if you're flying high enough, you could always gain some altitude, and that will sometimes help you. Or sometimes you might be flying through a patch of interference where just pushing through that interference a little bit further will make your signal pop back. If you're flying and you had a low signal because you're already flying out very far to begin with, then it's less likely that it will just pop back by flying further. But if you have a strong signal and you're flying and it drops, then you're probably flying too low and something got in the way, so you'll want to gain some altitude, or you'll want to just push forward a little bit through it. Or if you just want to err on the side of caution, you could stop immediately and start pulling your bird backwards. So that way you're going, back to where you knew you had reception. Another handy feature to have enabled if you're flying a DJI-based quad is to enable NASA mode, which you do in the RC Assistant, which you download to your computer. That enables you to turn course lock on and home lock on. Home lock being the simplest way to pull your bird back should you completely lose your FPV feed and you have absolutely no visual sight of bird. Home lock can be your savior. And also, of course, when you have NASA mode, you can also turn on attitude and failsafe. Failsafe being the same as just turning off the controller altogether. Although I use failsafe as an absolute last resort when something happens, because now you're relying on the return to home, and I'd rather use it as an absolute last resort, just in case anything were to go wrong with it. So let's say you're flying, you lose FPV feed. Now let's say you went forward, you went backward, you go backward and you have your video feedback again. Alright, now let's say you're in a different situation, and and if you use home lock, how home lock works is, regardless of which way your plane is facing, with home lock on, pulling it forward will fly the copter in a straight line back to the home position. So let's say this is your home position and your copter was over here when you're flying and the bird is sideways. So if you throw your thing in home lock, regardless of which way it is, it doesn't matter. You don't have to worry about the orientation being right. You pull this back and it will start flying at an angle in this direction towards your home point. Which can, and you keep doing that until you get your FPV feedback. It's a lot easier though. There is one caveat to home lock mode, is that the Phantom will fly slower than it will normally. So if there are heavy winds, it might not be able to fight back against the winds if flying in home lock mode. Course lock is faster, but it doesn't really work well for this purpose. So now this is where my next recommendation comes in handy, which is how to figure out the orientation. If you do have a visual, let's say if you lose FPV feed, but you can see it in the sky still, even if it's a dot. But, geez, it's a dot, I can't see it front or back. How do I get it back? So this is what you do to fly your plane back when it is a dot in the sky. And I'm going to cut the video off here and just add that as a part 2, how to fly your plane when it is a dot in the sky with no FPV feed. So anyway, please like and subscribe, and I'll check the link for the next video, part 2.